Hello, this is Miss Andrea. Today I want to talk a little bit about students using artificial intelligence um, to complete their language arts assignments. Uh, I am a homeschool um, program runner. I'm a homeschool program administrator and I'm a veteran homeschool mom and an instructor. And I'm also a master's degree candidate. I am in the last term of my master's program writing my research paper so I can graduate. And for the last 18 months that I've been in that program, I've seen a lot of people using what you would call a rephraser tool, so that they could just skim the internet for the information they want to talk about, copy it, paste it into the rephraser tool, and submit work that looks, at first glance, good. It is not. How do I know? Because I've discovered the rephraser tool too. You can't just take text found on the internet and drop it into a rephraser and spin it and then post it as if it is your own, because there are going to be very many telltale signs that you have done such. Sign number one is, especially if you're using Wikipedia, you're going to see the citation numbers. You're going to see a lot of things that clue you in that they've used Wikipedia, like a lot of brackets around dates and things of that nature. Something that I found, especially because my school's international, so when foreign students are using paraphraser, or just, if they're using a paraphraser to submit work in English, they're not seeing the English grammar problems that a paraphraser can create. So if the original sentence says something to the effect of the sky was dull and dreary, the paraphraser might change it to the sky was gray and gray. And so they're not catching those errors. And, when you give student to student peer feedback, I'll say, you need someone to look over your work if you're using some kind of translation tool, because it's not translating well into English. And I won't call them out and say, I know you're using a rephraser, because that's what a rephraser does. I'll just say, whatever tool you're using, you need to have someone who's fluent in English look over your work, right? So the newest thing that we have lately is AI that will just create the essay for you, right? And it'll give you a fifth grade essay. But it won't give you a middle school and high school level essay if you don't know how to go in there and upgrade the essay. So I'm super torn. Like, do you let kids just go ahead and use it and give you subpar work? Or do you forbid them from using it? A couple of kids who just blatantly plagiarized, I made them start handing in papers handwritten, because there's less of a temptation there. But there are some kids who know how to write, and they're going to use these tools. And so do you just teach them how to use it? For example, this is Chat GBT, the most popular AI program. It's come out very recently and it's blown up. And everyone's using it. You can type into it just King Louis XIV, or who was King Louis XIV. It will spit out King Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King, was a monarch who ruled France from 1643 until his death in 1715. He became king at the age of 4 following the death of his father, Louis XIII, and his mother, Anne of Austria, served as regent until he reached adulthood. During his long reign, Louis XIV centralized power in France, strengthened the monarchy, and pursued policies of absolutism. He also oversaw significant cultural and artistic developments, particularly in architecture and the arts. Some of the most notable events and accomplishments of Louis XIV's reign include construction of the Palace of Versailles, the expansion of French territory through military conquest, and the establishment of Académie France and other cultural institutions. Louis XIV was succeeded by his great-grandson Louis XV upon his death in 1715. Problems. There's some language here that my students wouldn't use. They wouldn't say strengthen the monarchy and pursued policies of absolutism, unless they were pulling that from somewhere. So that's my first sign that they're using AI. So I rejected 2 submitted essays from one student this week and said, I need you to read this section, understand this section, and give it back to me in your own words. I didn't fail him. I just said, I need to know that you understand what this says right here. Okay. But once they type that, that's really not a lot of information about Louis XIV. That's just real super cursory. So a smart student would ask the second question. Why was Louis XIV called the Sun King? And it would tell you Louis XIV was called the Sun King because he chose the sun as his personal emblem, his symbol of his reign, yada, yada, etc., etc., etc. So the student would have to take those 2 essay portions that the chat AI would kick out and then combine them into one cohesive essay. But there's still a problem. Where did they get this information? There are no citations. You can ask chat AI for citations, but it will typically give you books. Very rarely will it give you websites. So it's pretty clear to me when I typed in how did Louis XIV become king, include citations. It basically told me the same thing. It gave me a little bit more information, like where he was crowned and things like that. But then the sources are books. One of them in French. And I know that my student has not read these books. So that tells me that the paper was delivered in a dishonest way. Clarifying questions when you get the chat AI to give you, an essay with or without sources. If you read it, because they're not even reading it, they're not reading it back. If you ask chat AI to give you an essay, you have to read it and see if there are any holes or any further questions that you have. And then you would ask the further question. For instance, I asked, how did Anne of Austria become regent? I asked how Anne of Austria became regent because I, as a historian, know that it is important information that she went against her dead husband's wishes to become regent and did some underhanded stuff. So it split that information out for me. That says before his death, Louis XIII had a designated group of advisors known as the Council of Regency to assist Anne in governing France until his son became of age. However, the council was dominated by Cardinal Mazarin, a trusted advisor of Anne's who wielded significant power and influence. And so Anne and Mazarin were able to assert their control over the government and maintain stability. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so students who just go in and ask AI to write them an essay, they're going to get an essay, but they're not going to be able to say what they've researched. So now all teachers are going to request citations. I am telling all teachers, if you haven't thought of it already, request citations, website links, according to whatever. Teach them how to do citations. Because they can't do the cheat and not even read it at all. Just submit you this essay that they've scrubbed using AI. They can't provide citations if they do that. What they would have to do if they're super smart is reverse engineer, read the essay and say, I don't know about this information. Let me search the net to see where it comes from, and then find a source to back it up, right? Finally, paragraph rephrasing that I mentioned earlier. That is the smarter way to teach children to write using artificial intelligence. For instance, here you can see I did the search about Louis XIV, and then copied the paragraph, dropped it into the free rephrase tool, clicked simple, just a simple rephrasing, because there's different levels of rephrasing. There's shortened and sophisticated and all that. And then it spit out the rephrased portion. But if you look at it, you can see that there are signs that the student didn't write it. Students tend to put dates into paragraphs. There's some vocabulary here that they may or may not use. Like, your students, what vocabulary they may or may not use, right? Now, I'm never going to tell a student that this vocabulary is too sophisticated for them, but I might ask them to explain to me what they wrote. Okay, but if they do it this way, at least now at the end of that paragraph, they can, they know where it came from, and they can say, according to Britannica.com, yada, 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 and give the link or the proper APA citation. So I don't know. I really don't know. I'm really torn between teaching my 11th and 12th graders how to responsibly use AI, because it still requires proofreading, so it still requires language arts skills. But I kind of don't want the younger kids to use AI, because I'm seeing that they're already doing it in the laziest of ways and calling themselves out as not even reading the work they've done. So give me your thoughts. This is really important, and it's going to be a problem or not a problem. It's either going to be a problem or something revolutionary. With kids, I'm leaning toward problem. Till next time.